Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
We've talked before about Hertz, the rental car company, having all kinds of trouble these days, including the fact that they're mired in bankruptcy right now. But there have been all kinds of stories coming out about people who rented from Hertz not so long ago. And somewhere along the line, Hertz called the police and said, these people stole a car from us. And now you can understand that there might be an occasion where if you rented a car for a week, didn't return it, didn't call them, didn't make arrangements, and if you skedaddled with their car, then yeah, they should call the police. It turns out they had a hair trigger on this. It turns out that they would often call the police and report cars stolen, and they did it at a crazy rate. And this is the kind of thing where you look at this and go, why did they do this? Is this really just pure incompetence? Or was something else going on? So if there's anybody in the audience who's worked in the rental car industry who can think of a reason why Hertz did this way, please let me know. But from CBS.com, and Steve, Ian, David, and James all sent this to me. Anna Werner wrote it. Hertz files thousands of car theft complaints against customers every year. And a judge has now ruled they have to make that data public. The bankruptcy court judge in Delaware overseeing the bankruptcy that they filed has ruled that the rental car company, Hertz, must make public the number of renters it has accused of stealing its cars. The ruling comes in the wake of a CBS News investigation of claims by customers who say they were falsely arrested. And this story has been all over the news the last couple of years. I've done several videos about this. So we're talking now about the fact that this problem is so widespread that apparently somebody crunched the numbers on how many people they reported to have stolen cars, and that information was sent to the court under seal. And CBS said, you know something, that ought to be public. And a court apparently agrees with them. So now, CBS News consumer investigative correspondent Anna Werner reports that a Colorado man, for instance, alleges he was arrested after Hertz wrongly reported to the police that he did not return a car in Georgia, which of course is a state he's never been to. Hertz declared bankruptcy in 2020. They filed all their theft data under seal, and CBS News legal team filed a formal objection to the attempt to keep that and other statistics secret, leading to the court's recent decision. So a news organization came in and said, we think that's newsworthy and it shouldn't be private. And the judge said, you know something, I agree with you, and he released it. So the information has not been released yet, but it's coming. Meanwhile, the company currently faces 230 claims in bankruptcy court by people who allege they were falsely arrested for stealing rental cars based on erroneous reports from Hertz. And that's 230 who've gone to the trouble to file their claims in bankruptcy court. I suspect there's more out there, and so does CBS. Now, Hertz said in a statement, now this is funny. Trust me on this one, my friends. Of the more than 25 million rental transactions by Hertz in the United States per year, 0.014% fall into the rare situation where vehicles are reported to the authorities after exhaustive attempts to reach the customer, Hertz said in a statement to CBS News after the ruling. So you're saying, wait, Steve, 0.014% and we're upset? Applying that number to 25 million means that the company is reporting an average of 3,500 customers for auto theft each year on average. 3,500 customers reported each year on average reported to have stolen the cars. The numbers of those reports Hertz admits were erroneous reports has not yet been revealed, but it is included in the judge's unsealing order. So apparently, Hertz was asked in the litigation by somebody, how many customers have you reported as having stolen your cars? Part B, how many of those are you willing to admit were erroneous? And apparently, Hertz turned all that information over to the judge under seal, and the judge just unsealed it. So to give you an example, another one, a real estate appraiser named Drew Caesar from Colorado was stopped by customs officers at the airport on his way to Mexico with his family. They checked my passport and they said, Mr. Caesar, are you aware that you have a warrant out for your arrest in Georgia? I thought they were joking. Hertz had wanted him arrested for stealing a rental car in Georgia the previous November, but he says he's never been to Georgia and has never rented a car from Hertz. So obviously, it's mistaken on some level. Either they got the name wrong or somebody's using this guy's name or something, but he's never been to Georgia and has never rented from Hertz. And they go, there's a warrant out for your arrest, which he discovers when he's trying to cross the border when somebody checks his passport. He says, I was terrified. I've never been arrested before, never been in any sort of trouble. I own my own business, he told CBS. He spent more than 24 hours in jail before his lawyer was able to show he was in Colorado the day that Hertz said the car was stolen, and prosecutors dismissed the charges. The vast majority of these cases involve renters who were many weeks or even months overdue returning vehicles and who stopped communicating with us well beyond the scheduled due date. Situations where vehicles are reported to the authorities are very rare and happen only after exhaustive attempts to reach the customer, the company said in its statement. But those figures, including how many lawsuits have been filed, are expected to be unsealed soon. So they say, look, it almost never happens. And it only happens after somebody rents the car, doesn't return it, ignores us, and just keeps the car. Doesn't explain how some guy in Colorado who's never been to Georgia has an arrest warrant out for him because he supposedly came to Georgia and rented a car from Hertz, which are two things he's never done. Gone to Georgia and rented from Hertz. And the guy's name is a little unusual. I said it's Mr. Caesar, but it's spelled funny. And I'm saying that not to poke fun at the guy's name, but to point out that the odds of that being a complete mistake out of thin air seem strange. But it might be that someone else named Caesar, spelled this way, is in Georgia. But you'd think if you rent a car to somebody, you'd get good identification from them. Now, it's been a little while since I rented a car. 2-3 years, maybe? But I seem to recall when I rented a car, they asked me for a credit card to put the car on, and then also a valid driver's license. And I remember them looking at me going, oh, okay, it looks like him. So the idea that this guy who's never been to Georgia and never rented from Hertz somehow winds up on their radar. And again, I know somebody will say, Steve, possible identity theft. It's possible. It's quite possible that somebody stole this guy's ID and went to Georgia and rented a car from Hertz. That's possible. But did that happen 3,500 times each year in the last few years? That seems kind of strange and anomalous. So we'll see what happens, because I suspect that there's going to be a big, what we call a data dump, where Hertz is going to come out and say, fine, you want the information? Here it is. And they're going to push across the table a virtual banker's box of messy records. But someone's going to be able to go through it very quickly and crunch them and go, okay, how many of these claims were filed with the police for stolen cars? And how many did they admit were false? And I suspect, and I'm just speculating here, but they are facing 230 claims right now from people who say, I was wrongly accused by Hertz of stealing one of their cars. 230 claims. But they say they reported 3,500 a year for quite a few years. I'm willing to bet you there are more people out there who have not filed a lawsuit yet who were falsely accused of stealing the car from Hertz. That's just my suspicion. We'll see what happens. And I have to imagine that if you called my office, and by the way, I don't handle this kind of law, so this is hypothetical, but if you called my office and said, Steve, a couple of years ago, I rented a car from Hertz, brought it back, a week later I got arrested, they said I stole their car. Or, Steve, I never rented a car from Hertz, I got pulled over by, a cop pulled me over, said, I pulled you over? No, I don't. There's a warrant out for your arrest. You stole a car in Alabama. Never been to Alabama. And Hertz got me arrested. I want to sue Hertz. I'd say, well, number one, get in line. This is class action. Or this series of actions. I don't know if it's turned into a class in that sense yet. But there's a series of actions. The problem is they're all being litigated in a bankruptcy court in Delaware because Hertz is bankrupt. So whether there's enough on that carcass for the vultures to feed, I don't know. But I bet you anything, there's more people out there who simply haven't filed the claim because they go, why bother? What are we going to get out of this? Why bother? So it's always sad, I think, when somebody, whether a corporation or a person, causes all kinds of harm and then runs into bankruptcy court for protection and gets it. That's always kind of bothered me, but we'll see what happens. But meanwhile, Hertz files thousands of car theft complaints against customers every year. And a judge has ruled that they have to make that data public. CBS News published it. Anna Werner wrote it. And Steve, Ian, David, and James all sent it. Thanks a lot, guys. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. If money doesn't grow on trees, why do banks have branches?